We're going to now change the viewer's appearance, and we'll start by adding a new CT image to the viewer. First, make sure you actually have a working build of the viewer. We'll use the one we made in the startup tutorial. Also make sure you can have something that will turn a bunch of images into a single grid-like image. You'll want a program to edit the images. We'll use GIMP. And you'll also want something to convert your DICOMs to a normal image format like PNGs. So I got some scripts that I use. If you use these, you'll need Linux. But normally I'm assuming you already have something to turn DICOMs into PNGs. So I'm going to take my scripts and put them right in with all of my DICOM images. And I'm going to extract them here and put the actual scripts themselves in with the images. Before I start, I need to make some folders to put my final images in. So I'll have an ASCII folder, ASC, and a PNG folder, PNG8 for 8-bit PNGs. Now I'm going to run the bash script that will turn all of the DICOMs into text files with their values stated explicitly. This file will also reorder them by their z-axis rather than just keeping whatever order the DICOMs were in originally. Okay, now my ASCII folder will be all populated with text files. You can see, 0 means black, and then, the numbers can normally go up to like 40, 95. Okay, now I have a Python script that'll turn these text files into PNGs. So before I run the script, open it in a text editor, and you can see we can set the windowing values here. So the high would be the high end of the window, and the low would be the low end of the window. 0 to 2000 is a pretty typical range for most of the values you will see in a CT image. So I'm just going to keep that and run my script. I did not name it correctly. It's named Gray, not PNG. Okay, so let me use the correct name now and run the script, and it will go through, and this will take a while. It'll save each image. So when it's all done, it will show you the highest value that it found in all of those text files. We'll go into more depth on that in the advanced windowing tutorial. So we can look at our PNGs. They look like they're in order. You can open them with an image browser and just kind of scroll through. Nothing should, jump out of order if everything worked correctly. I'm going to rename them real quick to shorten their file names. And now let's get ready to turn them into a grid of images. So one image, that's a grid of all of those slices together. Okay, so I'm going to open up a calculator and we'll see what that grid's dimensions need to be. So there were 420 images. So the square root of that is over 20, so we'll make one of the dimensions 20. So I'm going to use ImageMagick for this. You can use whatever program you want that can turn a bunch of images into a grid. Let me go to my PNG directory. I'm going to delete one of the images because 20 times 21 is exactly 420, and every image set I've demoed has made perfect use of the image dimensions given to it. So I want to show that it doesn't need to be, the perfect amount. So I'm going to tell ImageMagick's montage function to make a grid that's 20 by something. It can choose what that something is. It's going to be 21, but all right, and it's done. So let's look at our new image, which is 50 megabytes. That's way too big. So looking at it in GIMP, ImageMagick's going to leave that empty spot white. I would recommend making it the same color as your background. If you ever scale it, your scaling will blur the colors, so make it a similar color. Also make sure the mode is in grayscale. That'll save you a little bit of space. That should be the case by default, but it might not be, so set it to grayscale. If you do want to resize the image, and I don't because mine were already 512 by 512, which I'm happy with, make sure that your new image size is equally divisible by the slice dimensions. So I'm 20 slices in one direction, so if I wanted to resize it to 480, then my new size would be 9600. If you don't make it evenly divisible, then the CT viewer will round to the nearest pixel, and the image itself will actually migrate a little as it gets scrolled. But I'm not going to scale it, so let's go ahead and export it. I'm going to replace file 1, and I want it as a JPEG because I want it to be smaller. Let's see what a 90 quality level gets us. I don't know. Okay, so 22.4 megabytes, that's still too big. A lot of the free hosts won't let you have bigger than a 10 megabyte file. Fortunately, JPEG is a pretty decent compression for grayscale images, so we can compress it pretty heavily without getting too many artifacts. So let's drop it down to 60. Okay, and 9.6 megabytes, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to copy my build folder that we used last time, so that way if I mess anything up, I'll have a backup to use, and I'm going to name this new one Build to Appearance because we're changing the viewer's appearance. So go into Assets, Slides, and you'll see the slides that we had previously. So let's carry in our file 1 JPEG, replace the old one. Okay. And there are a couple more things we need to do before this file's ready to be used in the viewer. So let's look at our list here. Okay, so we need to edit assets.txt, edit slidedm.txt, and add the actual image. So we started with the last step first. These don't have to be done in any sort of order. We'll edit slidedm.txt. Okay, and let's see. So we replaced file 1. So if we used a PNG, we could change this to PNG, but we didn't, so keep it JPEG. Okay, so let's set it to our new dimensions. It was 20 by 21. So you can count them if you want to, but you know. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so yep, that checks out. All right, so our total slides was 419. And let's set whether or not it takes clicks to true. So now we can click on it and, you know, it'll show those little rings. Okay, and let's go to assets.txt. And this contains information that the server will tell the browser. So find file01.jpg. Okay, and you'll see it has the file name. Again, if you change it to PNG, you know, you would change this .jpg to .png, but you didn't, so don't. You would also need to change the image type, so that image/JPEG would become image/PNG. It's still a JPEG, so, you know, leave it the same. Okay, and this number here is the amount of bytes the file is. So we can see if we add comments, it's 1,000,000 and something bytes. Okay, so let's go to Slides, right-click, I'm going to look at Properties, and we can see that it's 9,588,440 bytes. Okay, so copy that, put it in, remove the commas. Okay, so that's good. We can now save this file. And that's all of it done. So we should now be able to load the viewer and see our new image. So to do that, let's go to the root of our server folder, open a terminal, and start the server. Okay, now go through our browser. All right, and there's our new image. I used an image with a much larger slice count than usual, so you know, you might want to increase the drag distance to make it scroll faster, or increase the hold time, or decrease the hold time on the buttons if you have a lot of these really thick images in your trial. So we can see that it does take clicks like we set it to. Okay, so let's change other parts of the appearance in the viewer. Okay, so we'll see in the assets folder there's this config.ini, and it has this click section. So the click has a radius, that's how big the circle is, or the ring is. Let's make it really big. And the size of the radius is based on the width of the window, so if the width gets scaled, that radius gets scaled proportionally as well. Same with the thickness. Let's make that a little bit bigger. The depth is how many slices above and below the click that it's shown. Let's make it only shown on the slice that it's actually clicked on. Alright, and then the color, this is in a normal format that you'd use in HTML. It's in red, green, blue, alpha. So let's just set the color. So the color can be in 3, 4, 6, or 8 characters, depending on how much precision you want and whether or not you want an alpha channel. So I am going to make it completely red with full opacity. So I'm only going to specify the red, green, blue, and no alpha. And then for the highlight radius, let's make it an actual circle instead of a ring. So I'm going to make it 50 pixels. And then if I make it 50 pixels thick, then it'll be a complete circle. But since it's a complete circle, let's add some opacity to it. So let's make it pure white. So all red, all green, all blue, and 4 opacity. Okay, so let's reload the viewer, and let's see what that looks like. Click the tumor, I got a big red circle. And if I highlight it, then it is white, but mostly transparent. Okay, so the next thing that we can change, let's skip the ruler for now, and let's do the scroll bar, because that's in the same config file. Okay, so in the window section, we can see this bar color. So right now it's kind of gray with some alpha in it. So let's make it magenta with no alpha. And the border of the bar is black with some alpha. Let's make it green. Okay, and then we also can specify the width and the border. So let's make the border really thick, and let's make the width, of the actual bar really tiny, really thin. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now we have a thick border, thin bar, and, strange colors. Okay, so that's all for this file. We can now mess with the ruler. So you can see the ruler right now, it's this white circle. It's a custom shape that we've provided for the viewer. So open up shapes.txt, you'll see we have this shape called mark. Let's remove it and see what happens. So the ruler, if it can't find this mark shape, then it will just use the highlight. Okay, and so the highlight is what's used if it can't find the mark. Okay, so let's put that back in. Okay, so it's a ring. Let's change it to be a rectangle. So it can be a square, ring, or circle. So we're going to make it something with square corners, so a rectangle. We can change the color here, same like we did in the config file. Let's make it yellow with, a little bit of alpha. And instead of it being a perfect square, I don't know, maybe make this 10 or something. Okay, so that T means that as we scroll, it will fade in and out. So it can either pop in and out or fade. Let's make another shape. We'll just call it test. And we'll make it a rectangle as well, but we'll invert its dimensions. And I don't know, let's make it blue. And I've been using the single hex digit precision, so let's actually swap it up and use 8 characters, which gives you more precision in your color if you want it. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Do the ruler, and we see it's these yellow rectangles now. So that worked. Okay, but we also added that test shape, so let's add some more shapes to this image manually. So we're going to do that by opening the console. I use Control-Shift-I to do that. And then type viewer, add shape, and you can either add it to the image or the UI. If you add it to the image, it's affected by the windows. If you add it to the UI, it's not. So we're going to add it to the image, and the shape's name is test. And we're going to add it to the third slide set. That's the one we're currently on. And let's add it at 500x, 500y, and I don't know, maybe the second slice. Okay, and it'll return true, letting us know that that was successful. And we can see that blue rectangle now on our image. And because we added it to the image, let's change the shader, and you can see the shader actually affects our rectangle. Okay, so now let's add another image, but this time to the UI. Okay, so now we can see if we change the windowing level again, the one added to the image changes with it, the one added to the UI stays the same. So that's the difference between those two functions when you're adding shapes. Okay, so now, lastly, let's change the look of the loading bar. So that loading bar is talking about if you first load the image, this little bar appears as the files are loaded. Okay. So I don't recommend you spend too much time changing the loading bar because normally it shouldn't be seen because the image or the CT viewer will load in the background. So open this styles.css and let's see, let's go to loading bar, and we have the outer of the bar, which would be the border, and the inner bar. So we can see that the inner bar is the primary color and the outer bar is the secondary color. So we can change these colors up here and it'll kind of change our entire theme. So if you, I don't know, if you have lab colors or something, you can change it to that. So let's use this, I don't know, brown or something. And red. Okay, and we can also change the panel. So the panel is the whole thing surrounding the logo and the loading bar. So let's make it this almost magenta-y color. Okay, and then if we look at it again, it's completely changed colors. And we can also see that spinner's changed colors because we changed, you know, instead of changing the colors for the loading bars themselves, we changed our primary and secondary color. So this actually influences, you can see the colors of our highlights and clicks on our checkboxes and radio buttons. They also change. So that's if you want to change kind of the whole theme. Okay, so something else you can change is that logo image. So go to HTML and logo.png. You can put anything in so long as you name it logo.png. Let's see, and let's make it bigger. And I'll just write on it. Okay, so let's overwrite our old logo with our new one. See what that looks like. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so let's say you want to change the loading bar to look nothing like the original loading bar, so you want to write it from scratch. There are two functions you can overwrite in the scripts viewer events file. So scroll down a bit, okay, and find this viewer custom loading bar and viewer loading bar advance. So custom loading bar takes that panel element and then you can add whatever you want to it. So we're adding some text and the loading bar itself. So there we go, there's our text and our new loading bar. The loading bar advance is called every time the loading bar advances. So in our custom loading bar, let's add a span. A span is like a sentence in HTML. It's just sort of this inline element. Let's call it viewer percent. Okay, and then every time the loading bar advances, we will find that element by the ID we just gave it, by viewer percent. And we will change it. We'll change it to just say the percentage. So this will, print our percentage in text as well as advance the loading bar. So the percent is a number from 0 to 1. So if we want it to be an actual percent, multiply it by 100. Let's add a percent sign. Okay, and this is also going to be a real decimal number, so let's round down to the nearest percent. Okay, and there we have our percent displayed. And again, I don't recommend you do much of any of this because normally people won't see it. They'll be doing your, the demographics form and the consent form and all that stuff while the viewer loads, and hopefully it'll all be loaded by the time they actually get to it. And that's it.